Hello, and welcome back to the Losses Become Gains podcast. I am Tara Accardo, and today I have a hopefully very timely episode for you, at least as of when this is going to drop. And we are talking all about how to embrace the holidays after going through a loss, or perhaps you're right in the thick of it. Might feel like kind of a big ask or just straight up kind of impossible. Right? Maybe it's something you don't even want to consider going there with right now. But I have a little tough love here for you. The holidays won't stop for us and our grief, right? People are going to invite us to things. People are going to think that we need to be around loved ones when it's actually the last thing that we want to do. We're going to get inundated with advertisements and emails and social media and all the things. So your gain from this episode today is to not only dig into why the holidays are so difficult, which I know might seem obvious, but I have some important insights for you here, so hang with me. But we're also going to go over some of my favorite recommended tools to embrace the holidays after a loss and just better equip ourselves and mentally prepare a little bit for when and if any emotional moments might come up, because I have no doubt they will. So the holidays, or really even outside of the holidays, let's think a little bit bigger here for a moment. Perhaps it's just a special day that reminds you of something or someone that you have lost. This could be a birthday, an anniversary, whatever it is. That can be one of the hardest times in your grief. It is a looming reminder of what you don't have. And that is a very lonely place to be. That can be very deafening when you really think about it. And it can put a strain on your psyche and your mood, on your relationships, put pressure on your financial situation. And it overall can just downright take the fun out of a very special time of year. And you might be feeling some added stress, some anxiety, despair, loneliness, or emptiness, a lack of excitement. And I want you to know, first and foremost, I have been where you are. I have been where you are. I still am most holidays, even if I have some fun plans and even if those around me are ready and willing to cheer me up however they can. Simply put, it can be extraordinarily emotionally taxing and physically taxing as well, because remember, our grief can show up in physical ways as well. So whatever the cause of your grief, there are healthy ways to cope with the pain of loss, holidays or not. And these healthier coping strategies can help you come to terms with your loss just a little quicker, a little easier, and just make it a little bit more digestible, especially during the holidays. And it's really about finding new and deeper meaning and gratitude in the little things. And again, this episode is going to be more focused on the holidays here, but please, by all means, apply this to your everyday life because, as we know, grief is a lifelong process, right? It doesn't stop. So for those who are perhaps a little newer here or first started listening and haven't heard this part of my story yet, my mom died on December 9th, 2019 from esophageal cancer. We could feel and see her worsening weeks before that. There was a little glimmer of hope that they might be able to release her from the hospital, which she had been in for probably 2 months prior to that, for Thanksgiving. Sadly, that didn't happen. That very much didn't happen. I think we were probably, I don't know. I'd never want to say too hopeful, but it was just like a biting off more than we could chew situation. She just physically would never have really been able to do that. So when she passed just a couple of weeks later, let me tell you, the holidays may as well have not have existed that year. I didn't care, right? My dad and I, so also for those who don't know, I'm an only child. So my dad and I, we had each other. We did thankfully have some family visit just before and just after she died. However, we were alone for the holidays. We were alone for Christmas. The holiday season as I knew it would never, ever be the same. My birthday was a little over a month later. I'm a February baby. Never the same. My parents' birthdays, never the same. Countless holidays in between, never the same. And there's no wrapping your mind around that at the time. You just know what's in front of you. And you know that this Christmas or this Thanksgiving or Hanukkah or whatever it is that you celebrate doesn't look and feel right, So again, we celebrate Christmas, and let me tell you, it was the most painful Christmas I ever thought possible. Little did I know that I would not have either parent by that same time the following year, since my dad died in the following July. I almost don't know what was worse, truthfully. Having only one parent with me, my dad, and watching him in pain from grief while also grieving myself, or being without both and taking that on myself. I don't think my dad and I ever felt so alone being in the same room with each other. We were there for each other. Of course, we love each other deeply. We were so happy that we had each other. We shared a beautiful day together as dad and daughter. I am forever grateful for that final Christmas with him. But again, being an only child, especially, and losing a third of your immediate family unit, the silence and that piece missing is I'm using the word deafening a lot today, but it's deafening. It's hard to describe. And if you knew my mom and the personality that she was, it was literally very quiet as well in the house. She was just kind of boisterous and sassy and all the beautiful, magical things compared to the wonderful, hilarious chaos that she would have normally brought to that day. And it was truly just sad in every sense of the word. I mean, sad doesn't even really begin to cover it, of course. But the worst part, like I alluded to, was seeing my dad in such a state of grief. It is something that, as a child, looking at your parent like that, it tugs on your heartstrings in such a way harder than you could possibly imagine. If you have been through this, you know what I'm talking about. It hurt me, cut me to my very core and my gut and the deepest parts of myself, and made me feel more helpless than ever. It was almost like I almost put my own grief for my mom aside, because then I was so worried about him, and it was this crazy just mixture and range of emotions. And while I was in an intense period of grieving myself, I wanted to take that pain away from him, whatever it would have taken. I didn't care. I just wanted my dad to be okay. And my dad wasn't an overly emotional person. And truthfully, he kept it together rather well. He absolutely had his moments. There's a handful of times in my life, and it's a very small handful, that I've ever seen my dad cry. And I'd never seen him cry more than when my mom died and afterwards. But more than that, it wasn't just, he was being emotional. I could tell there was a piece of his soul, a key fiber of his being that was just missing. It was gone. I had lost my mom, but he had also lost his best friend and wife of over 35 years. One is not better than the other. This is not to compare, but one is certainly a longer period of time knowing each other. It's just very different. So, I was trying to navigate what it meant as the daughter, but he was trying to navigate it as the husband, and painful. So painful. So the following year, when both parents were gone, I almost didn't know how to feel. Truthfully, I think I emotionally blacked some of it out, subconscious coping mechanism. I spent Christmas with my husband's family. I had family checking in on me, which was wonderful. Overall, I had considering the circumstances, a lovely day. There was laughter, there was distractions. But outside of all of that, I almost have a better word to describe this right now. It just felt weird, honestly. Like it was empty without the traditions and the things that we would go and do or make it our house, to make our holiday our own. And truthfully, it's hard to know where to start sometimes after we lose a loved one. But that being said, I encourage you not to overthink it. And we're going to get more into this, but it was allowing myself to just be that day that took so much pressure off. And that is what I needed. It was like a gift that I gave myself that I didn't even know I needed that day. So, embrace invites from friends or family or, go wherever feels right. But if that doesn't feel right, that's okay too. And we're going to touch on this more in a moment. But if you do feel comfortable being around people, be sure to surround yourself with people that leave you feeling joyful and supported and with a full cup. Incorporate traditions you're really keen on keeping and see new traditions as opportunities to just create more beautiful memories, right? Like, yes, there can be so much pain in the moment, but we're kind of given this gift that like we can make this look and feel however we want to, and we don't have to do the same thing year over year. I mean, that's kind of the beauty of it in a weird, twisted way. There's so many ways that we can now approach the holidays. So I just want you to keep that in mind, especially on anniversaries or holidays where it can hurt a little more than just the normal day-to-day, as if that doesn't hurt enough, right? Finding ways not to replace what you had, but to welcome your new reality will be your key to finding some semblance of peace. And remember, there's beauty in the abundance of an open mind and an open heart. So if you're not there right now, this is not me rushing you to get there. It's just to plant the seeds as always. But you might be wondering, okay, fine, Tara, I'll hear you out on this. But how do I go about finding some level of, I don't love the word acceptance, so I'm going to say resignation for what we've lost. We're resigned to the fact that like, okay, this person or people are gone. They are not coming back. They cannot come back. They will not come back. I am resigned to that fact. That's not giving up. That is just kind of my alternative for acceptance, right? But now it's figuring out how to cope with the holidays when we feel lost, when we are feeling this deep pain on top of what we already feel on a day-to-day basis outside of the holidays. That can seem overwhelming. That can seem stressful. That feels out of reach. I know how you feel. I've been where you are. I am where you are. So let's just quickly go over some things that are just some of my top recommendations to do going into the holiday season. Again, just to mentally prepare, to physically prepare, all the good things. So first recommendation, acknowledge your pain. Seems like a big old duh, right? But for real, acknowledge your pain. Take a conscious moment to do that. The first step in getting through the holidays, or literally waking up in the morning on any other day, whether it is a loved one who has passed, a job, a child, a friendship, a relationship, a pet, what have you, is finding and holding space for your pain and the many subsequent emotions that are bound to come. Whether the loss is big or small, the most important thing to remember is that it's personal to you. No one has the power to tell you how to feel about it. So I want you to feel all the feels. Feel it in the privacy of your own home. Feel it in public if you have to, because it could come up when we're at the grocery store buying the frickin' Thanksgiving turkey, right? In knowing that, it's equally important to understand that you cannot and should not feel ashamed or like you need to hide how you're feeling, right? Like I just said, I just gave you permission. So give yourself permission. Let it loose in the grocery store if you have to, right? Own your grief. The holidays are stressful and hard even for those who aren't grieving sometimes. Acknowledge it's there if it's gnawing at you, period. Because the biggest disservice that you could do to yourself, for yourself, is to ignore what you're feeling or just what's going on around you. Especially at a time of year when you may have otherwise experienced a lot of joy if your loss hadn't occurred, right? So we're kind of like, we're filling in a lot of gaps here, and that joy, that lack of joy that we feel like we might experience is one of them. And remember, if you didn't realize this already, you're not likely only grieving the person or people that you've lost. You are grieving the feelings and emotions that would have accompanied their presence. The memories that you previously shared. That's how a lot of us get stuck kind of living in the past a little bit. I certainly did that. Full transparency for the first at least couple of years. And I'm realizing this is still continuing to come up for me. I do think a lot about my holidays with my parents as a child. In my childhood, it was so beautiful and classic, snowy. I grew up on the East Coast, so it was like the quintessential Thanksgiving and Christmas. I mourn that. I long for that, you guys. So whatever this is for you, that dish that they made that filled you with such warmth, like literally and emotionally, all the things. That dish that you swear you could smell now if you focused hard enough. If you lost a child, the child that you wish you could have dressed up in a sweet little outfit, or maybe they would have been X amount of years old by the holidays this season, or, watching our loved ones open presents. I mean, and again, I think a lot about Christmas, but however this applies to you, we're mourning the ability to create new memories and are struggling to find those similar feelings of joy again. And you may feel lost because that can feel so far away now. I get it. I do. It hits you. It hits you coming and going, and it's overwhelmingly painful. And again, it can be very lonely, especially if you don't have a lot of people around you who really get it or might feel like they're glossing over it. It's no wonder this time of year brings so much anguish. So coping takes a lot of effort and time. And like I said, each year it might look different. But that coping and that healing and all of that, it is possible. That is what I want you remembering today. If you're distracted, come back to me. Remember that the holidays and your day-to-day life can be so vibrant and colorful and beautiful. It is possible. Getting used to being without the thing or the person and the experiences or memories that they could have and would have brought you can be very hard to cope with. I want to validate that right now, especially if this is your first time around. Maybe you're listening to this and this is going to be your first holiday season without a particular person or people in your life. In moments of really severe stress or sadness, I want you to take a pause, breathe, and let those pent-up emotions out, because they have got to go somewhere, right? They will get us one way or another. They will. Whether this is simply letting your emotions out through crying or punching a pillow or going on a run or exercise. This is great for letting out pent-up negativity and emotions and all of that. Hello, endorphins. It's all good stuff. Talking about it with someone, practicing yoga or meditation. I mean, the opportunities are endless, actually. I want you to get excited here. Find what speaks to your soul. Find something that brings just a moment of respite from the sadness. And in doing so, in this process, you will find things that help you heal little by little, again, outside of the holiday season. And for me, understanding what made the holidays so tumultuous allowed me to feel those emotions even more and work through the pain. And the more I felt them, the less time they lingered around. And this made room for gratitude for my new reality, for new experiences. I'm going to say that again, actually. This made room for gratitude for my new reality, for these new experiences. You might be really early on in your grief right now, and you might be like, Tara, that is so far from where I am right now. I have nothing to be grateful. I am not grateful that my people or person, whoever died, whatever your loss looks like. That is not what I'm saying. It is not to take away from the past. It is not to take away from the value that these people brought to your life. But it is simply to find beauty in what's in front of you. Because seriously, what else are we going to do? What else can we do? We can get stuck in that sadness. We can relish in that. We can live there, sure. But what kind of life is that? So I want to empower you to see the excitement and hope for new traditions that maybe you would have never had the chance to explore otherwise. Frame it as adding to your experiences in life, not taking away from what you don't have. Really let that sink in for a moment. So the second thing that I think is really important that I really want to encourage you to do is to very simply communicate your grief. Do not be afraid to communicate your grief to others. It's that simple. Whether this is to a partner, a friend or a family member, a therapist or a counselor, a grief coach, that's me, whoever you're comfortable with. If you're struggling with this new reality you've been thrown into without your permission, most likely, make sure there's at least one person who is aware of how you feel. Who is aware of how you feel. Notice I didn't say understands how you feel. I said aware. Why? Because your journey, number one, is your own. And it's unlikely that anyone will fully comprehend your thoughts and feelings, your unique thoughts and feelings about the loss. Even if your family, let's say, has lost the same person, for example, that's fine, but each of you had your own relationship with that individual. Each one beautifully unique and special, and each one deserves to be seen and recognized. It's a comfort to be able to relate to others, and I truly hope that is the case for you. I deeply hope that is the case for you, that you have people around you that you feel like, even if they don't totally get it, you can at least there's that energy exchange of yeah, I get this. I've been through this too. But perhaps you don't have anyone in that boat around you. This happens all the time. I see it constantly with the people that I coach. This was also my situation on my first Christmas without my parents. And I'll be honest with you, this hasn't really changed. This is still my reality. I still don't know many people who have lost both parents, who have lost both in such a short time, who lost them in the same circumstances that I did. Right? So what I made sure to do was to communicate how I was feeling that morning. And by that morning, I mean Thanksgiving morning, Christmas morning, to my then boyfriend, now husband, before going to his family's house. I didn't expect him to relate or to be able to understand me. He still has his parents. He had all of his family there. His holidays, for all intents and purposes, were all hunky-dory, right? I simply wanted him to know that there might be moments where I am not okay, or I'm uneasy, or I just need a moment for Tara, or that I could feel overwhelmed or disheartened about what I'm missing that day, and that I might go into it okay, but moments might crop up and I might be triggered by something. I don't know. Grief is so unpredictable like that. And especially going into a household and in a family, at least at the time, that wasn't mine. You know what I mean? And I have air quotes going here. Amazing people. And again, I wasn't married into the family at the time, but regardless, I'm married in now, but still they're my people, but they're not my parents. They're not my family that I grew up with, that I am connected to in that way. And that deserves to be seen and validated too. So if I ever needed to take a little break from the festivities, or just to have a moment by myself, or just get some freaking peace and quiet for a moment, or if I needed a hug and a little support from him, I would just pull him aside or whatever, and I would express how I was feeling. And by kind of giving him that heads up ahead of time, he wasn't surprised and he made sure I was okay. That's it. And it was so helpful. And I'm glad I thought of that ahead of time, but like that is something that felt like it came naturally to me. That was something I felt like I really needed to do. But again, when we're in some acute grief, especially, that might not occur to us right away. So that is why this is such a powerful recommendation that I want to make to you today as well. And number 3 on this list, this is kind of on a similar note, but especially depending on where you might be going, or even if it's maybe like a work event, or it's, just somewhere where you maybe can't get this moment of peace and quiet or respite from the grief, have someone to contact. If you can't have a loved one there with you physically to maybe comfort you in person, at the very least, make sure you have someone to call. It's no secret that texting, a call, FaceTime, what have you, are all within literally the reach of our pocket or our purse. If you feel like you could need a virtual shoulder to either cry on or just to vent, have someone or maybe even multiple people to contact. And even better, make sure that in the weeks leading up to the holiday, that's why I wanted to launch this episode right now, so I can get you thinking about this if you haven't already. In the weeks leading up to the holiday, and whether this is the holiday season or an anniversary or birthday or whatever, make sure the people around you are aware of how the holiday might be a little bit of a struggle for you or might be triggering for you. Kind of just giving them a heads up. And I don't want this to always seem like this is on you to have to do, right? But I'm going to touch on this more in a moment, and why, as the griever, this is our grief work. This is us learning to sort of live with it. So again, I'm just putting this little bug in your ear right now. But, the thing with others, we can't control them, right? So most of the time, there are lovely people out there. They might have the forethought to reach out to you to make sure you're okay. I have some wonderful family members and friends that have done that for me. But there are also people that haven't done that. So if they don't, at least these people won't maybe be surprised if you need to get in touch and need a little pick-me-up in any particular moment. If they're aware of what you're doing or where you're going or whatever, they'll be able to be there for you in a more helpful and meaningful way. And they'll be kind of clear on like, okay, here's what he or she might need that day. It's unlikely your loved ones are mind readers, okay? If you don't communicate with those who care about you, they probably won't know, or they just might not understand the depths of it, or how much you might be feeling it, or how stressful this is already making you to think about. Again, this isn't to add more pressure onto you to express something you're maybe not comfortable sharing, or maybe this is like a little out of your comfort zone, or to add more to your plate than you already have going on. And yes, it's lovely if people around you that care about you check up on you on their own accord. Just remember, and again, if you're distracted, I want you to come back to me on this one because this is really important to remember. Remember that some people may feel it's best to give you time and space. They might not want to bring your loss or your grief or whatever up to you because they don't want to make it worse. They don't want to put you in pain, right? But little do they know, it's like all we're thinking about. But, there are people that just want to respect any potential boundaries. Meanwhile, there are some people that might want to be in touch with you more frequently, or they don't know the meaning of the word boundaries, right? You might want more space. You might want more interaction. You might want a little of both. You might not even know because you haven't been through this yet. All of it's okay. Don't put pressure on yourself. There's no need to figure this out now. The whole purpose of this episode is to just equip you and get you thinking about it so you can have, a backup plan, or you can just be like, okay, these are the things I'm going to keep in the back of my mind for when and if some of these things do come up. That's it. It's just a matter of being a little, like I said earlier, mentally prepared, right? And this is also important because one minute you might be up for something. You might be like, I'm actually feeling okay today. Right in this moment, I'm feeling good. And then another minute, you might be like, whoa, that was way too soon. That was way too early. My God, I overcommitted. Gave it some thought. Bad idea. Not ready. No, thank you. We have to communicate that to people too. And, not feel any shame around that, because we cannot force it if we're not ready. And we might feel that ahead of time. We might know that our social interactions this holiday season might be limited. But sometimes when there are little highs in grief, right? It ebbs and flows for a reason. So if we're feeling pretty good, but then something triggers us, then we might be like, oh my God, I can't back out of this. I already RSVP'd. Give yourself the grace and the permission to just be very upfront and honest with people. Give yourself grace here, as usual, as with any other day of the year, but especially during the holidays, especially if you are not sure how you're going to be feeling yet, or you're hoping for the best, but expecting the worst. I know it's hard to predict. And on that note, this actually is a perfect segue into this next point here. Know your triggers. This can be hard because you might not even know what they are yet. So just so you know, I have a whole episode specifically on understanding your triggers. That is episode 15. I will link that here in the show notes, but you can also go check that out. I would love for you to dive into this episode if you haven't already, or if this is something that you are struggling with, or maybe you're simply curious about what grief triggers specifically even are, how can they affect us, and more importantly, how we can handle them in the moment. And it's an amazing episode. I really want you to check it out. I truly feel like the triggers we experience while coping with any kind of grief in particular is especially intense, and it is never acknowledged enough. They can happen so fast. They can come on so strong in the weirdest places, in the strangest situations, in places we don't expect, especially in early stages and especially during the holidays. Something that is good to prepare for are the different, and like I said, sometimes unexpected, that emotions and triggers that could come your way. It could be, seriously, guys, it could be something like a dish or a certain cake that is served. It could be a smell that fills the house of wherever you're at, an ornament, a menorah, whatever this looks like for you, but just something tangible that holds special meaning. Or maybe it's not something tangible, and maybe it's a tradition itself, or an activity, or just the weight of something or someone being missing from your holiday season. That can simply be a trigger in and of itself. So being aware of what some of these could be, or at least just giving a little thought, and bracing yourself a little bit ahead of time, and knowing how to cope with these triggers will make the holiday season far more bearable, I promise you. So fourth on the list here is to just take care of yourself mentally and physically. I know this one might seem obvious too, and you might be like, yeah, I know I need to do this, but I cannot stress this enough. The holidays, even without a loss, can be a crazy time of year. Prioritizing your health is something you cannot skimp on. I want you to hear me when I say that. You cannot skimp on your mental and physical health. A birthday, it might feel a little less exciting. An anniversary can feel incredibly lonely. A would have been due date can be excruciatingly sad and painful. This can all take a toll, and rightfully so. But while we're talking about this, I have some recommendations and things to just keep in mind. These are all pretty high level, but there are some of my favorite ways to practice self-care in general, but especially during the holidays. Okay, so I'll just run through these as quick as I can. Number one, if parties or other festivities are too overwhelming, do not pressure yourself into going, and don't feel guilty if you don't. People will understand. It might not always seem like it. You might feel like it's an inconvenience. You might feel like you're burdening people. Get that all out of your head. Don't pressure yourself. Don't go if you're not feeling it. Period. If holiday decorations are too much or aren't evoking joy, skip them this year. Seriously, just skip them or keep them to a minimum. There will be plenty of opportunities to see them outside of the house too. Trust me, they will be smacking you in the face left and right. I assure you of that. Number 3, skip completely, or at least maybe minimize gifts. After a death especially, material things, this was really true for me, material things can feel less meaningful, and shopping can actually be especially stressful. If your loss, also I should mention, if your loss is that of a job and finances are tight, or they're just tight in general because life is expensive, right? Communicate with your family and friends and decide whether you truly want to exchange gifts this year. Or maybe you do like a white elephant of sorts and one person, or whatever, white elephant, I forget what it's called, but one person buys something for one person, one buys for somebody else, whatever it is, to just make it a little more manageable. It's okay if you don't want to exchange gifts this year. And if you don't feel guilty about that. And again, God willing, there is always next year. If you still want to do gifts though, if that's meaningful for you and that's important, which is fair, gifts can be fun, maybe put a spending limit on it to keep stress to a minimum, or just to keep it within your means, okay? Number 4 here, watch overindulgence of food or alcohol. It's really easy to stress eat or have a couple too many drinks when we're feeling sad or empty emotionally. So I just encourage you, keep an eye on this. Also, say yes to help. If people want to offer their support and help you, take them up on it. My friends, when my mom died, set up a meal train, and it was a life changer. It was so appreciated. It was like, I was so distraught. The last thing I wanted to do was think about what to make for dinner. And then, and my poor boyfriend and husband at the time, it was like all falling onto him, and it was a mess. So to even just have a week's worth of dinner literally taken off my plate was a godsend. And it was making sure that I had food on the healthier side around me. So I didn't just end up going to get some fast food that was quick and easy, right? Made such a difference. On a similar note, don't pressure yourself to make food or to host anyone. If you do go to a gathering and feel the need to bring something, or that's just, the thing to do, don't feel the need to overdo it. Let the grocery store pre-made section or bakery or whoever do the work. It's okay. If you enjoy making something from scratch, maybe that sparks joy for you, maybe that actually helps you in your grief, that's amazing. Consider a dish or a specialty maybe of your loved one, or, something that's just symbolic in a way that shares their memory. I do that sometimes with my mom. We were big dessert people, so, Ghirardelli brownies and fun things like that. Like, I'm showing up with something, it's made with love, it's homemade, but it represents her a little bit too, and it brings some of my traditions into the mix, which is amazing. How beautiful is that? This next point is really important, but it's also something you might not immediately think about. Identify people who provide you support and calm and no stress, and those that cause you more stress. Try to spend time with the former group, and at least for a little while, take a step back from the latter. The holidays can be overwhelming as is, and having people that add anxiety to your plate, you do not need any kind of negative or overwhelming energy around you on top of what you're already feeling. If it's difficult to avoid those that cause some stress, as in maybe they're a parent or maybe they're a sibling or, some immediate family member that you just can't get away from, do your best to set expectations with them ahead of time. And I do have more resources on the blog and all of that on setting expectations, because that is a whole nother can of worms to open. But again, planting the seed, just make sure you're thoughtful with who you're around this holiday season. Next is to create some quiet time for yourself. I've talked about this already. This worked really well for me, at least. The holidays can be really hectic. So just making sure you're taking quiet time for yourself to journal, meditate, listen to music, go on a walk, whatever this looks like. This next point goes along with the whole sort of take care of yourself thing, but whatever it is that helps you stay tranquil and happy as we could possibly get, do it. Be it meditation, like I said, going on walks, reading a good book. You just cuddle up with maybe some tea or some coffee and maybe a little fire and just take in the season, right? How good does that sound? Maybe taking an Epsom salt bath, calming your mind with lavender, some candles, the list goes on. And if you're looking for more inspiration here, remember, I have an entire self-care and wellness section on the blog to help you with this. I also should mention, I have a freebie on my website under the free tools section about practicing presence. It's like a practice and presence toolkit. You can download that right now, and I'll link all of this in the show notes as well. But it's just it's not that hard. It's just a really simple, beautiful practice. It's going to help you both in the holidays and outside of the holidays as well. And speaking of, as I mentioned previously, get some exercise. Be sure to get your activity levels up so you are not succumbing to the couch all day. I should mention, the holiday season, that's a perfect excuse to be cozy and a little bit lazy, right? Okay, sure. It's easy to fall into that trap when you're grieving or in a really dark place though. And it's not just like this cute being cozy on the couch thing. It is like, no, we literally cannot get our ass up off the couch. Y'all, getting fresh air, even running an errand or meeting up with a friend for coffee, whatever this is so important for the psyche. So just remember to prioritize this. But like I was saying earlier, don't push yourself too hard. This is so individual. It comes down to you and what feels good to you and what you feel ready for. And on that note, prioritize certain events or certain meetups or whatever, and just do not overcommit yourself. Just don't do it. When in doubt, don't overcommit. Especially with the holidays being filled with so many parties and dinners and events, save your energy for those that are most important. Look at everything you might have on your calendar, consider which ones are the priorities, and don't overexert yourself. All right, 2 more on this list here. If you are truly struggling or experiencing some depression, please seek professional help. There is no bad time to start. There is no downside, okay? I am here. My community is here. My membership is here. I'll touch on that in a moment. There's no being alone during the holidays. We are in such a complicated but also beautiful time with social media. You can find your tribe out there. All right, last 2 on my list here. If you're truly struggling or are experiencing some severe anxiety or depression, please seek professional help. There is no downside. There's no bad time to start, whether this is a counselor or a therapist or, like I said, a grief coach, or, whether this is you exploring my membership and community. I mean, whatever this looks like to you, I'll get to all of this in a moment. Finding your tribe, finding people that can understand you and just uplift you just a little bit, especially in such a complex time of year, it's gold. It's amazing. It will make a difference. And this last one here, I know this seems extreme. Hear me out. Skip the holidays. If it is too much to face, it's okay to just take a break this year. Just take a break. No one's forcing you to do the holidays. No one should be forcing you to do the holidays, right? If you're not ready. If there's a way to either just not participate, I'm not saying go just hide in a hole or again, just get succumbed to your couch. I want you to push yourself here a little bit, but think about this. If the holidays are just too much, limit your participation. Or if there's a way to simplify the holiday first, as opposed to just being nope, closing the door on the holidays, I don't care. Look at simplifying the holidays first. Look at ways to do that and just start there. You might find a way that makes it feel little more digestible for you, a little more palatable at least. And last here, I just want to mention, when it comes to the loss of someone special, finding a way to honor them or keep their memory alive can feel very overwhelming. There are days where sometimes it just never feels like enough. No matter what we do, it just doesn't do them justice. Trust me, I've had those days. It honestly could actually make you feel worse too, especially if it's a stark reminder of their absence. I've definitely had those days as well. I'm just trying to cover all the bases here. You know, the holidays, an anniversary, a birthday, a due date, you name it, can be one of the most difficult times of year in general, let alone finding or trying to find the perfect tribute to pay your respects to this loved one. I have an entire blog post actually that is also linked in the show notes that is dedicated specifically to this topic. It gives you 23 ways to honor your loved ones around the holidays. And so I hope this gives you just a little bit of inspiration on ways to maybe continue keeping their memory alive for years to come if you're kind of struggling with this and sort of where to start or finding something that feels right. I also want you to remember to mourn it and feel that deeply. This means releasing the emotions that come up for you, like we talked about earlier. My first Christmas especially, I missed waking up to my parents and seeing them first thing in that warmth that filled our home with their energy and their presence. And then also, you know, the breakfast that we made and the smell of coffee that swarmed the house and the Yule log channel that we would play on the TV in the years, especially that we didn't have a fireplace, right? How we opened gifts together and just how special and intimate and fun that was. The afternoon walk that we would go on. All of that. That is no longer my reality. That's gone. You guys, that's hard. And whatever this looks like for you, we all have our special traditions. We all have our special things. That can put us in such a state of longing and can make our grief so much worse. And that can really get us stuck living in the past, as I said. You know, part of this, as I'm reflecting now, just here in the moment, that's going to be hard for me the rest of my life. I know this. But that morning, on Christmas morning, whatever morning it is, again, this could be a daily thing, that I wake up, I take some time to remember those things. I don't shy away from remembering, mostly because I never want to forget those happy times at all. So allowing myself to feel those emotions and work through the pain, frankly, physical, emotional pain, made room for gratitude for those experiences. The fact that I even had them in the first place, the fact that I am so blessed and I am so fortunate to have had such loving and caring parents that I even have memories like that in my memory bank, in my brain. There are people out there that are not that lucky, right? So think about what you have around you that you have to be grateful for. And as I mentioned, there's excitement and hope for new and exciting experiences and traditions that we never would have had otherwise. So I want you to remember, I really want you to walk away with this message today. It's okay to be happy too. This doesn't diminish how much you love and miss the person or people who aren't with you on these particular holidays. If it's not a person, whatever loss is now behind you and whatever you're facing, all of these exciting, I want you to see them as opportunities, all of these exciting opportunities and memories to be made that lay ahead of you. That is a gift. You can argue with me about this if you want, but that is a gift. So don't feel guilty for the joy that you do find this holiday season, because you might end up finding some joy. You might, oh my gosh, end up laughing. You might end up smiling. You might actually have a beautiful time. You never know. So enjoy yourself. The holidays, yeah, they might be tough, but there will also be love and joy. And we don't need to go into it with a negative mindset. We don't need to go into it thinking that it's going to be all doom and gloom and, oh my God, there's no point and I just want to crawl in a hole and die. I understand that mindset. I do. I've been there. Big time. But there is a shift that we can make, and it is all these baby steps. It's everything that we have talked about today that helps us get there. And it is believing that it's possible. Remember, you become what you believe. The last thing I want to mention here, and I've alluded to this a little bit, is finding your tribe. And what I mean by that is finding a community, a tribe of sorts, to help you through this, to be there for you. While there was and is so much joy around me at, for example, my husband's family's home that first Christmas without my parents, and every year since then, especially that first year, I was not on the same holiday cheer level as everyone else was. Not even close. I put on my best smile. I put on a cute outfit, which did make me feel better. I'm not going to lie, it did help. I would also take moments here and there when I needed them. Like I was saying, I FaceTimed with family. I checked in with other friends who have also lost their dads. I have a couple very close, some of my best friends who have also lost their fathers. So I always we just do a little check-in with each other more than usual. And that was my holiday. Another aspect of my holiday, I kind of just mentioned this, but my family and we would go on like afternoon walks or whatever. Love my husband's family to death. They're amazing people, but they're not walkers. They don't go out for afternoon walks. That's not a thing that they do. They are, Christmas and Thanksgiving, everyone's couch potatoes. It's like football, being together, all the things. That's fine. They don't have to go on walks. They don't have to adopt my family's traditions and everything. But I'm not giving up my walks, and I am standing firm on that. And that is a personal conviction of mine. I like walking. I am a walker. If you know this about me, if you've seen some of the things I posted or talked about on here, walking has saved me. It is something that my family and I did together, especially my mom and I. It's a sacred practice to me. And I'm not giving that up on my holiday. That first year, I went on a walk by myself. My husband didn't go with me. He wasn't in the mood. He didn't really want to. And I'll be very honest. I know some people might be like, seriously, he didn't go on a walk with you? Did he not understand how important that was? No, he didn't. He didn't, but that's okay. And I also didn't really communicate that. And I'll be especially honest here. I wanted to go by myself. I needed to go by myself. I needed that moment. I needed that short time frame to be me and be with myself and honor myself and my traditions and my family. And that was my very bittersweet. I know this sounds very sad and probably very lonely, but I actually felt so fulfilled and I felt joyful. And I'm pretty sure I shed a few tears and some things, but I was okay. It was exactly what I needed. And I felt so empowered that I did that for myself. It was a gift that I gave myself that day. And as of this recording, I'm about halfway through my pregnancy with a baby girl. That is something I'm going to do with her. Hopefully she wants to go with me. At least for the first several years of her life, she's coming with me whether she wants to or not. But it's something that I can now share with her and pass down to her. And it's going to become our little family's traditions. That's the way that I'm choosing to see this. You guys, it's a choice. It is a choice how we approach our grief. It is a choice how we choose to approach the holiday season. It's all within us. We don't have to go into it with negativity. We don't have to assume that it's just going to be a shit time of year. We don't have to do that to ourselves. So I'm just encouraging and empowering you today to own your holiday season, own your grief. And to come back to this, finding a tribe here for a moment. I know I got off on a little tangent there, but I think it was an important one, and hopefully it was impactful for you to hear. But also, find your tribe and actively be there for one another. You show up for other people and other people will show up for you. I have no doubt this will help you. Maybe you will even find a little mini tribe through Losses Become Gains. And I really just want to hammer this home. If you truly are committed and you really actually do want to find a community and you feel like you are needing some extra support on a day-to-day basis, but also some especially specific support and guidance through the holidays, I really, from my heart, invite you to explore my Intentional Life After Loss membership and community. It's about building around your pain. It's supporting yourself on this long, crazy, complex journey with a sense of community that also combines the perfect coping tools to help you. And of course, in this membership, we're addressing grief and we are addressing the core of our grief here. But we've talked about some of this today. There's so much more to the story about living with our grief and living a full, happy, intentional life. So, I'm a grief coach, but I'm also about to finish my soul purpose coaching certification. So I have this really magical, beautiful mix of two different types of coaching that I bring together to talk about various subjects each month. So we talk about, coping with grief and loss and hardship. Number one, always. Managing stress and anxiety and fear, shifting your mindset. We've talked about that today. Intentional and healthy living, wellness, self-care, somatics, right? This mind-body connection, going even further, tapping into your higher self, discovering your why. Why are we here, right? Grief, if nothing else, really makes us question this. So let's not ignore that. Let's dig into that. Let's discover your soul and your dharma, your soul's purpose of why you're here. It's fascinating, you guys. Like, it's such amazing work that we are here and we get to do. And this is your invitation to go deeper, to get curious and get excited about how wonderful, truly wonderful life can be for you after a loss. It can be. I promise you, I am living proof of this, okay? And this membership and community is amazing. I am so lit up by it because it's a safe space where you will feel heard and seen and not judged, right? We have people judging us and our grief all the time. Shouldn't you be over it by now? Oh, this is your 5th holiday season without them. Shouldn't you be okay? No, it doesn't work that way. So in this space, your grief is treated and respected as a lifelong process because that's what it is. And you are then surrounded by people who understand that it needs to be treated that way. It comes down to turning your pain into purpose, your losses into gains. That's what we're doing here. That's the whole point. And it's understanding that grief can actually fill you with strength and wisdom and gratitude in those spaces that feel so profoundly empty. I know what those spaces feel like. I'm still healing. I am still filling them up myself. But it's wearing your grief and loss as a badge of honor, almost, if you will. And when I was designing this membership, just so you know, I thought of every aspect of my healing journey that helped me get to the point that I'm at and what has been useful and also what has been life-changing for grievers that I have coached as well. I'm keeping all of these things in mind. And when I did that, when I really took a step back, I realized there was so much more beyond the surface. That is why I wanted to integrate all of those topics into it that I just mentioned. So again, we're going deeper than our grief here. And I think that's so important because it's not always just about the grief, right? It is about, okay, this is the darkness. This was the dark night of the soul that I've been through. And how we can kind of come out of this mud and out of this darkness. I always like to think of a lotus flower, right? How it is just created and grows through this absolute darkness, but it blooms into something so absolutely beautiful and serene. And you wonder, how it came from those beginnings. That can be you. You can be this beautiful little lotus flower. That's what I want to share with you. That is what I want this membership to be about. And it's content and it's community and it's live coaching and Q&A calls too. Again, bringing in this community aspect to it that speak to your soul and challenge you a little bit, because we do have to be challenged in our grief. I hate to break it to you, but we do. And it's making a long-lasting impact on your emotional and physical too, we touch on all of it, well-being. It is finally feeling hope and progress. That is the whole point. And I want you to imagine just for a moment as we're wrapping this up, just take a moment and imagine how different you could feel between this holiday season and next holiday season if you took that next step. I can't even tell you what night and day I feel from my very first year of the one losing my mom when my dad was still alive, the year after that when both parents were dead, and now. Such night and day. If you took a step in the right direction and simply put your hand out and said, yeah, I need some help. Not only do I need some help, I choose help. I choose to take action for myself and those around me. I want something more beautiful and fulfilling and impactful for myself and for others, and maybe for your family or your friends. But at the end of the day, you're doing this for you because only you can put in the action. It's your why that is going to make this work for you. That is what you're doing when you step into this membership and community. And again, I keep talking about gifts this year, right? And it's not these tangible gifts. It's this transformation, this spiritual gift that you're giving yourself. And it is one of the most beautiful things you could possibly do for you. Also, just to mention, speaking of gifting, I guess, you could also gift this membership to a friend. Maybe this is something that maybe you're hearing this right now and you're like, oh, I'm not sure I'm there, or I'm not sure this is totally right for me, which by the way, if that's it, or if you're on the fence, let's have a conversation. You are welcome to DM me. You're welcome to email me, lossesbecomegains@gmail.com. If you're having any reservations about this, just want to throw this out there because I want you to feel totally comfortable going into this membership. If you have any questions, let's talk about it. But also think about this. This might be appropriate for someone around you who could really use it or really benefit from this. But bottom line, whether you do this for yourself or for someone else, whether it's something you invest in for you or you're investing in it for them, which is incredible, there is a beautiful transformation on the other side of this. And finding your tribe is part of it. And also having these more tangible coping tools that I provide you, exercise and prompts, video content, all in a really digestible way. And ultimately guidance from a grief coach, right? That's me, to just help usher you along. But it's baby steps because this is a tough process. This is an overwhelming process, but it's one that I am super excited for you to be a part of. If this resonates with you, and I welcome you with open arms, and I have no doubt that you are going to feel lighter. You are going to feel a sense of optimism and joy and hope, perhaps more than you have felt in a long, long time. I have made this work for myself. I have made this work for other people that I have coached. I want this to work for you too. And I have no doubt that it can and it will. So more information on all of this is linked in the show notes. If you want to learn more, I highly encourage you to check it out. If anything we talked about today in this episode helped you, if it resonated with you, I'd love to hear about it. I'd love to hear just your thoughts going into the holiday season. So as always, my inbox and my DMs and all the things are open to you. And I really just hope you found this episode to be a timely and helpful resource and reminder as we go into the upcoming holiday season. And as always, no matter what, the Losses Become Gains community, both in the membership and also out of the membership, just on Instagram, wherever, is always here for you. So with that all being said, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I am sending you just huge, huge, massive hugs and lots of love and positive vibes going into the holiday season. And I will see you in the next episode.